Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Walker, the Manager of Athlete Development here at USA Volleyball. And today I'm privileged to be joined by Myles Cooper, who is our head athletic performance coach here for the Beach National Team. Myles is joining us today to talk to coaches a little bit about how they can consider the physical needs of their athletes on the beach and how they can work successfully with strength and conditioning coaches. Thanks for joining us, Myles.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So to open up the conversation a little bit today, as we think about coaches working with beach athletes, beach is a very different game than indoor. So can you give our coaches a little bit of a summary of what are the physical demands that athletes have on the beach that might be different from indoor?
One of the biggest differences is just the overall workload that the athletes are going to encounter on the beach. They're going to cover more distance. Their heart rate is going to get up a little bit more. Depending on the style of play, there's going to be more jumps. There's going to be more changes of direction. There's going to be, accelerations and decelerations in multiple different planes. So just the overall aerobic, aerobic demands is going to increase more so than it will in indoor.
Awesome. So if I'm a coach and I want to be able to help my athletes develop physically as well as in the game, a good recommendation might be pairing up and working with a strength and conditioning coach. So if I'm a coach who's looking to do that, how do I find a good strength and conditioning coach to pair up?
So there's various websites. You can get on the National Strength Conditioning Coaches Association website and check out what's available in your area. There's various personal trainers and private performance coaches, especially out in Southern California, that might have experience with working with volleyball or beach specifically. So, getting online or maybe even getting out in the community, talking to people that might know people and just trying to make connections that way, that'd be the first place that I would start.
Perfect. So let's say I'm a coach, I found my strength and conditioning coach to work with. How do you recommend navigating that relationship so it is really successful in terms of what the strength and conditioning coach offers versus what the coach on the beach offers?
Well, obviously communication is, the most important thing. And so speaking as a performance coach, I like to listen to the coaches a lot to get an understanding of, the style that they're going to play, how they're going to run their practices, what they need to prepare their athletes for. So then I get that information. Once I get that information, then I can, ask the coaches certain questions about, around competitions. How many competitions are you going to have this year? How long are your practice is going to be? How intense are your practice is going to be? Just getting all that information that I need so I know how to focus my training. There's some coaches who run a higher tempo practice, not a lot of rest. And so I understand as a performance coach, I don't need to focus as much on the aerobic side, and I can just work on strength, power, and explosiveness. But then there's some coaches who don't run those high tempo practices, who maybe teach more, work more on skill. So then I know that, they might not be getting that high volume of training on sand. So then I can adjust my training in the weight room to add that aerobic capacity that they'll need.
I love that focus because what you're really saying is understand what the other coach does.
Exactly.
In that, right? So if you know what I'm doing on the court, you know how to adjust in the weight room. If I know what you're doing in the weight room or in that strength and conditioning, then I know I can adjust on the court.
Yes, exactly.
If I'm a coach, though, that isn't always thinking about what they're doing in the weight room or what they're doing with strength and conditioning, how can I be a little bit more self-aware? Are there indicators I might see with my athletes if I'm overloading them in practice?
Well, most coaches are going to be able to tell when their athletes are getting fatigued. And the more you're around that athlete, you can probably get a sense of they should be able to tolerate more. So if their posture starts to change, if it's harder for them to, play in athletic stances, if they're starting to what I like to call play tall, so if they're standing up really, really high, they can't hold those athletic positions, sign of fatigue. Obviously, their ventilation rate is going to be a sign of fatigue. And if their technique starts to break down, if they can't make those simple routine, passes or sets, if you see that start to break down, that could be a sign of, maybe they're not fit enough yet. And so then seeing those things, then you can reach out to your performance coach and say, hey, we're a half hour into practice and technique's already breaking down. They're looking sloppy. They're not as crisp. So then, then the performance coach can go out, can have a look at practice, and then see where maybe some differences can be made either on sand or just allow sand to be sand training and then make adjustments in the weight room.
Perfect. So if I'm a coach out on the court and maybe get that athlete who's transitioning from college for the first time, indoor for the first time, and I need to explain and kind of emphasize to them, hey, this is the importance of each of these elements maybe in your training. I'll be here for your skill execution on the court, but recommend you connect with Myles, recommend you find a sports dietitian, etc. Do you find that generally because our collegiate athletes are experienced with having that team, that doesn't so much feel like a surprise to them that they should have support staff who help their training?
Yeah, a lot of the kids now, they're coming from some of these bigger schools. They have a performance coach assigned to just their team. They have an athletic trainer assigned to just their team. They have a dietitian who's preparing recovery shakes and meals for them. They have experience with, doing video analysis of their games. A lot of them now have come in having experienced sports science, so they're wearing the GPS units. So a lot of the kids that we're getting now already have experience with those. And so then it's just getting them accustomed to, how we're doing things at Beach. A lot of times these college programs have more staff available for those things. And so we just, at Beach, we have to be strategic with, how we're executing all of those things. So nothing is falling through the cracks. So it's just getting them used to, how we work as a performance unit. But yeah, like you said earlier, a lot of those athletes are coming from these programs already having those in place. So it's not a really big surprise for them. It's just switching just getting them adjusted to being a professional now.
So as you think about the time that you worked within and around the beach, what have been the biggest challenges that you've had in working with beach coaches?
Just not being able to be everywhere at once. I'm the only performance coach for beach. There's multiple different coaches practicing at different times, different days, different areas of the beach. So just being able to get out to their practices consistently, to be a presence there. And then also sometimes it's a communication piece where since you can't be out there all the time, since you are not assigned to just their team, just not being able to have that consistent communication, but you can get that via text, via email, speaking with the athletes on, hey, how was practice today? Or if you can, just shooting the coach, shooting him a quick text or a phone call just to check in and get an idea of his daily plans, weekly plans, and monthly plans. You can do that in advance to have an idea of what the coaches is going to do, because they're going to switch depending on, what competitions are coming up. So if you can sit down with the coach in the preseason and just get an idea maybe of, okay, in this 2-month block, here's the focus. After that 2-month block, for this 3-month block, is going to be heavy competition focus. So I'm going to challenge them on sand, and then in the weight room, we cut down a little bit. So it's just communicating beforehand so you can have an understanding, but just not being able to be out at practice for everybody is probably one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing is if I'm the coach out on the court, communication is key.
Absolutely.
I'm still working with my strength and conditioning coach, and encouraging my athletes to be in communication pretty actively with the strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, and a lot of times, well, that's one thing that I really like to do is just have a conversation with the athletes. When I see them walk in, hey, how was practice? How was your day? How you feeling? Just a little simple questions like that can give you a lot of information, and it can give you information that you can use moving forward. So then when you see an athlete walk in, you can look at their body language because you ask them, how you feeling? Are you sore? Are you tired? Once you get that information and then you see them walk in the weight room, it was a bad day, wasn't it? Yeah, we did this, we did that. Okay, well, here's how we're going to adjust. So yeah, just again, communication with the athlete, communication with the coaches, asking the right questions, asking the appropriate questions regarding the training. And then if you can't be on sand all the time, that's a good way to help with that. I don't want to say lack of communication, but just not being able to communicate as frequently.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here and think about any other recommendations you might have for beach coaches as they're working with strength and conditioning coaches, any final thoughts?
Um, Being aware of what the athletes have going on outside of, in the weight room and on the sand. A lot of our athletes, they have jobs to help support them, and a lot of them are coaching. So not only are they on the sand practicing, doing their own practices for 2 hours, then they come in the weight room for 45 minutes to an hour. Then they're on sand again for another 2 to 3 hours, working with high school kids, or they might be driving an hour and a half trying to get to practice. So just understanding what the total athlete, I guess, stress looks like. So then you know how to adjust. Sometimes kids are coming an hour, driving an hour, sitting in traffic. Okay, coach, maybe we need a little bit longer warm up, start things a little bit slower, progress a little bit, you know, make the progression of intensity last a little bit longer so they're not jumping 100% after sitting in a car for about an hour. Or just understanding, hey, yeah, they had 5 days of coaching practice, 3 hours in the sand. That 3 hours in the sand is, now it's 15 hours for, in that week. So just understanding those things, what's going on outside of the athletes, outside of the weight room and sand, and that can help give us other information on how to adjust things.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
us and sharing your expertise.
All right. Appreciate it.